Hello everyone and welcome back to Alteryx Tutorials. I am Mark Thompson. Today's session is going to be weekly challenge number 211, and in this session we have a list of names and we want to turn them into email addresses. What we want to do is we want to add on an @testemail.com as a fake domain, and we're going to combine that with a capitalized first letter of the first name plus the last name of the user, even if they have a middle name. And then we want to group them by each letter in the alphabet and find out how many we've got with each letter and provide a count for those groups. So when we're done, it will look something, let me move the screen here, something like this, where it's the first letter, all the emails, and what the count is. All right, let's go ahead and jump on in here. As I said, we've got a data file, and it's just one line, strictly one line, and they're all mashed together. And if I can ever get my, there it is. It looks like that. Okay. First thing we want to think about is how do we go ahead and break them out? And so we throw this text to columns on, and we use a delimiter, and we say comma, and we're going to split them by rows. And when we do that, we now end up with 300 records. Okay. Why is my cursor? Come on, there we go. And this is what they look like. Now, most of them won't have a middle name, but as you can see, some of them do. So we'll have to take that into account here in just a minute. Next thing we want to do is we want to break this out. So we use another text to columns, and instead of breaking it by rows, we break it into columns, and we break it into 3 columns. This time our delimiter is a space. So we use a space delimiter here, and now we have our first names, our last names in most cases, but some middle names. And then this third column where when there is a middle name, we've got a last name. Next thing we want to do is we want to be able to grab the first letter of the first name. So we'll use a regex for that, easy enough. And we'll do this and we'll say alpha. And if that's actually on the cheat sheet here, and you can see that it is right there, which just says any letter, right? And we only want a single letter, and it's just one. And that provides us with that first letter of the first name. We're doing that on the users. Over here, we could have done it on one as well, but we did it on users. And so now we have this first letter, and we've got last names, last name here sometimes, last name here sometimes. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to address this issue. So how do we do that? Well, let's split out the ones that have that middle name. And we're going to do that by splitting out the ones that don't have a null. So we filter these and we say, hey, any place that's null, that's true, we want to break that out. When we do that, we're going to now we've got the first letter and we've got the last name. We know that these are all nulls, so we know that all of column 2 is a last name. And really the only thing we need to worry about is this first letter, and now we rename it to last name, right? I've got that first in there, but we really don't need that. We don't even bring that column in. Down here, we do the exact same thing, except for we know coming out that these are the ones that have the last name in the 3 column. So now we have the first letter and again the last name. So we need the regex out 1 and the 3. Regex out 1 and the 3, and we call this first letter and we call this last. Now we can bring these 2 groups back together. We only have 2 columns. We look at this and we go first letter and last. And the result of that, we now have a column with all the first letters and a column with all the last names. The next thing that we want to be able to do, and if you think about this, we want to capture that end number, right? And the reason for that is if it doesn't have, if it's not valid, if it doesn't have that number, it's not valid. So we're breaking this off merely to find those occasions when the end number is not null. And as you'll see, there is one instance of it where it's just the letter N, the last name is null, and the number is null. So that's not a valid address. So we break this off with a regex, and we just do one little digit, easy, right? We call it end number, and there we go. Now we have ourselves a group. We filter these out. We have one that's bad. The next thing we want to do is we want to take all of this data and we want to put it together into a quasi email. So we come here and we say, well, let's first of all make sure that this is all capital, the first letter. So we do a capital on this, and then to create, so this first letter, we've capitalized, it's uppercase. And then this email, we do the column of first letter, and then we do a plus a dot, plus the last name, plus the @test email. And we add a semicolon. Right there, right? So we can separate them all out. Next thing we want to do is we want to count how many of these are in each letter, as well as aggregate, concatenate all of the email addresses. And we'll do that with a summary. We get there and we group by the first letter. We don't even need the last, so who cares about that? The end number, we don't care about that. We do care about the email, and we're going to concatenate all of them together, and that gives us this. And the email gives us a count of all of these. When all is said and done, we now look at this and we go, awesome. Now let me look at this concatenate here a moment, and let's go ahead and put a space instead of, because we had already put the semicolon, right? So let's go ahead and just do that with a space, and we run, and we now have our emails separated by a semicolon, and each one of them, when I open this up, is in there. All right, that'll wrap it up for today. I am Mark Thompson. These have been Alteryx tutorials. Please hit like, please hit share, and as always, we welcome your comments and feedback. Hope to see you around next time. Have a great day.